You think you're angry because someone disrespected you. You think you're hurt because they ignored you. You think you react because of what they did. You don't. Your emotional reactions have almost nothing to do with other people. They're about you. Always have been. And the moment you understand this, everything changes. Most people spend their entire lives believing their emotions are responses to the world. Someone says something. You feel something. Cause and effect. Simple. But that's the story you tell yourself after the fact. The real mechanism is buried deeper. Your emotional reactions are preloaded. They were written years ago. Childhood. Adolescence. The first time you felt powerless. The first time you were abandoned. The first time you realized you weren't enough. Those moments didn't just hurt you. They programmed you. And now, decades later, you're still running that same program. Different people, different situations, same reaction. You think you're responding to the present, but you're actually responding to the past. Let me show you how this works. Someone cancels plans with you last minute. You feel rage, disproportionate rage, not irritation, not mild disappointment, full anger. Why? Because when you were 7, your father promised to take you to the park. You waited by the door for an hour. He never came. He forgot. He was busy. And you learned something that day. You learned that you don't matter enough to remember. So now, 30 years later, when someone cancels, you're not reacting to the cancellation. You're reacting to that 7-year-old who stood by the door, waiting, invisible. That's the dark truth. Your emotions aren't about now. They're about then. And until you see that, you'll keep blaming other people for feelings that have nothing to do with them. Here's where it gets worse. You defend your reactions. Passionately. Because if you admit your anger isn't really about them, you have to face something much harder. You have to face the wound. The original wound. The one you've been covering up with blame and justified rage for decades. It's easier to stay angry at them. It's easier to make them the villain. Because then you don't have to look at the part of you that's still broken, still waiting by the door. Psychology calls this projection. But that term makes it sound clinical, academic, like something that happens to other people. It happens to you every single day. You project your unresolved pain onto the present moment. You see threats that aren't there. You feel rejections that didn't happen. You interpret neutral behavior as attack. Not because you're crazy, because you're human. And because no one taught you that your emotional system is a recording device. It stores every moment you couldn't process, every feeling you had to swallow, every time you were too young or too scared to defend yourself. And then it plays those recordings back, constantly, triggered by anything that remotely resembles the original pain. Someone speaks to you in a certain tone. Suddenly you're 12 again, being yelled at by your mother. The person in front of you isn't your mother. They don't even sound like your mother. But your nervous system doesn't care. It recognizes the pattern. And you react. Not to them, to her, to the memory, to the feeling of being small and powerless and wrong. This is why your reactions feel so big, so consuming, so undeniable. Because they are big. They're the accumulated weight of every time you felt that same feeling and couldn't do anything about it. But now you can. Now you're an adult, so your system tries to fight back, tries to protect you, tries to make sure you're never that powerless again. Except the threat isn't real. The danger isn't present. You're fighting ghosts, and the person standing in front of you has no idea why you're so angry. Because from their perspective, they just asked you a simple question. From your perspective, they just attacked your entire existence. Same event, completely different realities. This is the gap most people never bridge. They live in their own emotional reality and assume everyone else sees it the same way. They don't. Everyone is living in their own past, reacting to their own wounds, defending against their own ghosts. You pass each other like ships in the night, never quite connecting, because you're not actually responding to each other. You're responding to what each other represents, and what someone represents to you is never about them. It's about your history, your damage, your unfinished business. Think about the people who trigger you most, not just irritate you, trigger you, make you feel something intense and immediate and hard to control. Now ask yourself this: who do they remind you of? Not physically, energetically, the way they make you feel, the role they seem to play in your life. Are they the critical parent, the dismissive sibling, the friend who betrayed you, the partner who left? They're probably not doing anything that extreme, but your system doesn't care about accuracy. It cares about pattern recognition, and once it finds a match, it lights up. Full alarm, fight or flight. Protect yourself. This is why you can't think clearly when you're triggered. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. Logic disappears. All you have is feeling. Raw, overwhelming, undeniable feeling. And that feeling tells you you're in danger, that you need to defend yourself, that this person is the enemy. But they're not. They're just the current actor playing a role in your internal drama. The real enemy is the wound, the one you keep feeding with reactions. Every time you react from that place, you reinforce it. You tell your nervous system it was right to be afraid, right to be angry, right to protect you, and the wound gets deeper, more sensitive, easier to trigger, until eventually you're walking on eggshells in your own life, terrified of feeling that feeling again, avoiding people and situations that might activate it. That's not control, that's captivity. You've become a prisoner of your own unprocessed pain. And the worst part is, you don't even know it, because from the inside, it just feels like other people keep hurting you, keep disrespecting you, keep letting you down. You don't see the pattern. You don't see that you're choosing the same type of person over and over, recreating the same dynamic, because some part of you is trying to heal the original wound by replaying it. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate painful situations in an attempt to master them. You date the emotionally unavailable person because your parent was emotionally unavailable. You befriend the person who takes advantage of you because your sibling took advantage of you. You work for the boss who never appreciates you because your father never appreciated you. Different faces, same feeling. And every time you think this time will be different. This time you'll get the love, the validation, the recognition you deserve. But you won't, because you're not actually dealing with a new person. You're dealing with your projection of an old person onto a new person, and projections can't love you back. They're not real. This is the trap, the loop, the cycle that keeps you stuck. You react, you blame, you avoid or attack, and nothing changes, because the variable isn't out there. It's in here, in you, in the parts of you that never learned how to feel safe, how to regulate, how to separate past from present. And no one teaches you this. No one sits you down and says, by the way, most of your emotional life is just trauma replay. So you go through life thinking you're a rational person responding to real events, when really you're a wounded person responding to old events through the lens of new people. There's a way out, but it requires something most people refuse to do. It requires you to stop believing your emotions, not ignore them, not suppress them. Stop believing they're telling you the truth about the present moment. Your emotions are real. The feelings are real. But the story they're telling you is usually fiction. When you feel rejected, you're not necessarily being rejected. You're feeling the echo of past rejection. When you feel attacked, you're not necessarily being attacked. You're feeling the memory of past attack. When you feel abandoned, you're not necessarily being abandoned. You're feeling the terror of past abandonment. The feeling is valid. The interpretation is often wrong. And until you learn to separate those two things, you'll keep acting on false information. You'll keep burning bridges that didn't need to burn, pushing away people who weren't actually leaving, fighting battles that were never real. This is what emotional maturity actually means. Not controlling your feelings, questioning your interpretations, asking yourself, is this about now or is this about then? Most of the time, it's about then. And when you realize that, something shifts. You stop needing to be right about your reaction. You stop needing to make the other person the villain. You stop defending your right to be hurt because you see that your hurt has nothing to do with them. It's yours. It was always yours. And that's actually good news, because if it's yours, you can heal it. You can work with it. You can finally address the thing that's been running your life from the shadows. But if you keep insisting it's about them, you stay powerless, because you can't change them. You can only change you. Here's what happens when you start doing this work. You notice the reaction. You feel it rising. That familiar surge of anger or fear or hurt. And instead of acting on it immediately, you pause. Just for a second. You ask yourself, when have I felt this before? And if you're honest, the answer comes quickly. You felt this 1,000 times. With different people, different contexts, same feeling. That's your clue. That's the wound showing itself. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can react the way you always react. Blame them. Make them wrong. Protect yourself the way you've always protected yourself. Or you can do something different. You can acknowledge the feeling without making it about them. You can say internally, this feeling is big. This feeling is old. This feeling is mine. And then you can choose how you want to respond. Not from the wound, from the person you actually are when you're not triggered. That's power. Real power. Not the power to control others. The power to control yourself. Most people think power means never feeling hurt, never feeling triggered, never feeling anything uncomfortable. That's not power. That's dissociation. Real power is feeling it all and still choosing your response. Still seeing clearly. Still acting from intention instead of reaction. And that's rare, because it requires you to sit with discomfort, to feel the feeling without making it mean something about the other person. That's hard. It's so much easier to externalize, to make it their fault, to stay in the story that you're the victim and they're the perpetrator. But that story keeps you small, keeps you stuck, keeps you repeating the same patterns and wondering why nothing ever changes. Nothing changes because you're not changing. You're just swapping out the actors in your drama and running the same play. Different stage, same script. And you'll keep running that script until you decide to write a new one. No one can do this for you. No therapist, no partner, no friend. They can support you, but the work is yours. You have to be willing to look at the parts of you that you've been avoiding, the parts that feel too vulnerable, too broken, too much, the parts that learned a long time ago that the world isn't safe, that people will hurt you, that you need to protect yourself at all costs. Those parts are still there, still active, still trying to keep you safe in the only way they know how. But their methods are outdated. What kept you safe at 7 will destroy your relationships at 37. Shutting down emotionally protected you from your mother's rage. But it's killing your marriage. Being hypervigilant kept you one step ahead of your father's moods. But it's exhausting you in every friendship. Fighting back kept you from being completely overpowered as a kid. But it's isolating you as an adult. The strategies that saved you once are now sabotaging you. And you won't let them go because some part of you still believes you need them. You don't. Not anymore. But you have to prove that to yourself. You have to show those young parts of you that it's safe to put down the armor, safe to stop fighting, safe to feel without falling apart. And that takes time. It takes patience. It takes compassion for yourself that most people never learn to have. Because most people were taught that emotions are weakness, that vulnerability is dangerous, that needing anything from anyone makes you pathetic. So they locked it all away, built walls, became hard, untouchable, and then they wonder why they feel so alone. You can't connect with people from behind walls. You can't be loved if no one can reach you. You can't be seen if you're hiding. But taking down the walls feels like death. Because for so long, those walls were the only thing keeping you alive. So you stay stuck, defended, reacting, blaming. And the years pass. And the same patterns repeat. And you grow more bitter, more cynical, more convinced that people are just terrible and there's nothing you can do about it. Except there is. There's one thing you can do. You can stop lying to yourself about where your reactions come from. You can stop pretending you're just responding to what's happening now. You can admit that you're carrying decades of unprocessed pain and it's leaking into everything. That's the dark truth about emotional reactions. They're not about what's happening to you. They're about what happened to you. And until you face that, you'll stay trapped in the loop. Same reactions, same patterns, same loneliness dressed up as self-protection. But if you're willing to look at it, really look at it, without judgment, without shame, just honest observation, then something becomes possible, something most people never experience. Freedom, not from feeling, from being controlled by unconscious patterns. Freedom to feel everything and still choose wisely. To be hurt without making it mean you're worthless. To be angry without destroying what matters. To be afraid without running from what you actually want. That's the other side of this. And it's worth every uncomfortable moment it takes to get there. Because on the other side, you're not reacting anymore. You're responding. And there's a universe of difference between those two things. One is automatic, unconscious, driven by fear. The other is intentional, aware, driven by choice. Most people never make it there. They stay in reaction their whole lives, convinced they're justified, convinced the world is just against them. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But your reactions won't change that. They'll only keep you exactly where you are, scared, defended, alone. Or you can do the thing almost no one does. You can take full responsibility for your inner world, not because it's your fault, because it's your life, and no one else is coming to fix it for you.